Padres, we are the flagship of the San Diego Padres. And a lot of people, some of the time, we're talking about it during the midweek. What are we talking about the Padres for? It's January 20th. Well, they're leading up to spring training. I mean, spring training is going to be here before you know it. And as constructed right now, you're still missing major spots on your roster, on your 26-man roster. The Padres do not have a left fielder. They do not have a center fielder. They currently do not have a designated hitter. I'm going to be kind of vague with that because I think it sounds like Machado is going to be starting the season as the DH for the San Diego Padres. Your bench pieces are a lot of young guys. I don't think anybody really is going to sign in the next couple of weeks with any team. I think February we'll start to see a little bit more action when it comes to Major League Baseball free agency, maybe some trades. And I still think A.J. Preller and company are in a spot right now where they don't have, obviously, the biggest budget for 2024. Because if A.J. Preller had the budget that he has had the last couple of seasons, we would have seen some moves right now. Maybe they would have been in on Cody Bellinger and, everything that was being forward. I don't really know. But I would imagine with the wheeler and dealer that AJ is, he would have made some moves in that sort of span. I think they're playing it safe. I don't really say safe, but I think they're playing it right now as we're going to wait for some of the prices to come down on some of these guys. No one really has leverage yet. In the first week or so of February, the teams get leverage back because there are a lot of players that are veteran guys that want to just guarantee that they got a spot somewhere. And their wives want to know where they're going to live, their families. It's a lot that goes into being a professional athlete, obviously, that doesn't involve just playing the game. So I can see them being able to get a couple of those players. You go through the free agent list. We did it this week. There's not a lot out there that doesn't have some type of, I don't want to use the term baggage, but doesn't have some type of baggage. Whether it be age, whether it be productivity going down, whether it be off-field stuff, whatever it is. There is some type of baggage involved. So you're not going to find the perfect free agent. You can talk about Jordan Montgomery, you can talk about Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger. You're not going to get any of those guys either. Not for what they're asking. And to be honest, as much as I'd love to have Blake Snell back on the Padres, for what he is asking for, it doesn't make any sense. Regardless if the Padres had a big budget or not, it doesn't make any sense for them to go get Blake Snell at the price that he wants. I mean, what the Yankees offered, I might be interested a little bit, but he was not interested at all. He wants over $200 million. For a pitcher that has only had, well, not really only, but he had his two biggest years were in contract years. He's getting up there in age. There's no guarantee, and he can't be paying players, especially for the Padres. You can't be paying players for what they have done and not what they're going to do. So it's a very difficult situation navigating what this roster is going to be. As you start looking at somebody, we talked about Brandon Belt yesterday on the show. Brandon Belt for $10 million. No thanks. Not for $10 million. I know that's the going rate. That's what it's going to be. Like $9.5 to $10 million. I get that. And I'm one of the believers that you need a first baseman. Not because Jake Cronenworth is not a good baseball player, but because he's not a first baseman. You need a power-hitting first baseman if you want to win a World Series. That's usually how it works. That's the player that gets a limited opportunity, like in the field. He's not a great fielder. He can put the ball over the fence. He drives in runs, big power bat. He's there to hit. Jake Cronenworth isn't that player. He's not a big power guy as much as he tried to be the last couple of years because he was playing first base, and it looked like he was trying to be. His swing was drastically different than it was in 2020 when he was actually hitting the ball over the yard. Jake Cronenworth, second baseman, $12 million a year, I'll take it. That's not a bad deal, especially in this market. Jake Cronenworth, $12 million a year, playing first base, I don't like it. Not a power hitter. You need a power hitter in that spot. Or you're going to move Jake Cronenworth. You played him in left field. I would rather not do that and just force this guy to play everywhere just because he's a good fielder. He's a really good fielder. But he needs to be playing in this position that he knows how to play. He's a middle infielder. He ain't going to play shortstop. You're paying too much money for Xander Bogaerts to play shortstop. You got Ha-Seong Kim, who is the best shortstop on the team. And if those guys aren't playing shortstop, I doubt the Padres move Fernando, but I think a lot of fans would probably like to see that. He's probably going to play second base. Where you put Ha-Seong Kim? I mean, Kim at the beginning of the season, it's not going to matter because Kim's going to play third because Manny Machado is going to start the season as a designated hitter. But you need to find a couple more pieces here. I mean, outfielders are going to go for like $16 million. You got $27 million to spend. You put it all in Jorge Soler, and that's it with $16 million a year. I mean, that's kind of the going rate for a guy like Jorge Soler. Spend a little bit less and go get, a Jock Peterson, perhaps. He could play the outfield and be a DH. Although I'd probably rather have him be a DH. JD Martinez. I mean, again, you start throwing out some of the Justin Turner. You start throwing out some of these names. They're very old. They're older players. We did that last year. Did they not? Did the Padres not do that last year? I know Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter are a little bit older than the current stable I just pointed out. But a very interesting thing nonetheless. I did see a comment in there. There's been a couple that, Jock Peterson would be a great addition. I agree with that. I think I wanted Jock Peterson more a couple of years ago than this year, but I'd love to see Jock Peterson. I mean, I'd love to see the Padres go get Cody Bellinger, but that's probably out of the cards based on how we've seen everything play out. Because at the beginning part of the offseason, they were kind of rumored to be interested on Cody Bellinger, and then it was like you started to see them spend, and they wouldn't spend the money on some of the pitchers that they could have retained, like a Seth Lugo, not like a Michael Wacha, because of, probably a little bit too expensive. The beginning part of the offseason, it was, do you want to spend all of your free agent money into Cody Bellinger? Now it's like, I don't know if all of the free agent money could get a guy like Cody Bellinger. But it would be ideally, to get Jock Peterson, Cody Bellinger, and Justin Turner rolling to Dodger Stadium with 3 former Dodgers. I think that'd be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind that. 3 former Dodgers that are not named like, that are not Beatty or, maybe like a Zach McKinstry or something like that. A little bit different of an aspect there. The other one I think is very intriguing. I haven't seen this too much. New York Mike 8. I'm going to have to do everything. I need to get some octopus hands to be able to do this for all of the features we have here. New York Mike 8. Make me an offer for Pete Alonso. I do think that's very intriguing. I mean, obviously the Mets were interested in potentially trading him. I'm pulling up. I gotta figure out what his value would be. I mean, you would have to give him a contract after the fact. I think that's a lot of money, probably. But, I think it'd be very interesting to see Pete Alonso on this team. The Padres Twitter attacked the dude when they had the Chris Paddock saga. I don't know how that's going to work, but Pete Alonso is a free agent at the end of the season. And he's getting $20 million in arbitration. I mean, that's not worth it. That's not a placeholder. You can't afford him. That's not a player you can afford. Because you'd have to give up a lot of young players. I'd rather just keep the young players and see them play next year. And I think that's a big talking point for a lot of fans too. Is I would just have Jackson Merrill play And we'll just, we'll have Robbie Snelling and Dylan Lesko come up and, go through the list. Samuel Zavala can play in the outfield. They're a year away. They're a year away. You can't have those guys play this year. And we've seen the Padres do that a lot. It reminds me of the CJ Abrams situation a couple of years ago. When we were leading up to opening day. And remember that was the year, was that 2021? Because I remember we were talking about we had a show at the Lost Abbey. It was the original opening day. We were going to do opening day at the Lost Abbey downtown in East Village. It was a lockout. That's what it was. The lockout prevented us from that day being opening day. It got pushed back, obviously, a couple of weeks. And the question that was the main topic that day was CJ Abrams potentially making the club. And I was against it because I didn't think he was ready and he didn't want to force the guy because you needed a player. And I think that did hamper his development a little bit. He's getting better in Washington because he's playing every single day. But the big argument I had against CJ Abrams being on the team was he wasn't going to be on the team to start. He was going to be a backup role. That cannot be the same situation when you're talking about some of these players and these top prospects. You cannot have Jackson Merrill on this team unless he is starting, in my opinion. I think a lot of you have the same opinion. We see some more YouTube chats. I'm going to try to get as many of those as I can. Again, I'm trying to do a lot. It's the first time doing the whole show with all of the resources here. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, by the way. If you're driving around and in this rain, you just got home, you want to continue the conversation, you can jump on and watch the show. Got my nice little Horned Frog shirt on today, representing the blackout TCU's doing, although they're not really playing very well. I digress on that. But if Jackson Merrill is going to be on this team, it's because he earned a spot and he is starting somewhere. And to me, that is only second base. I don't want to see Jackson Merrill in the outfield either because you need a guy. That's not how you keep the cycle going. When you see all these teams that develop their own talent and do a good job of doing that, Dodgers, Cardinals, Tampa Bay does a great job of that. Some of those organizations that have always been able to just produce talent. Atlanta, they're not necessarily calling up players to just be backup spots. They call up players, they put them in the lineup, especially their top prospects. Because when you pull them up, they're expected to play. Otherwise, they could be playing down in the minor leagues and getting reps every single day. I know someone in the chat mentioned Fernando Tatis Jr. Fernando at the time was going to start. I mean, that was a move of Padres haven't had a shortstop in forever. And I'm so glad I didn't have to play that game anymore. Remember all those years where it was like, can you name all the shortstops the Padres have had since 2000? Because they never had one. They had Khalil Green, and that was about it. And then they had all these other guys. Aztecs made it a 3-point game with 11.7 seconds left, by the way. Impeccable comeback for San Diego State. It'll probably come up short, but we'll see how the free throws go. But Fernando was going to play shortstop, and it was the veteran guys that went in A.J. Preller's office and said, you got to put this guy on the team. I don't necessarily think that was the case for C.J. Abrams, and the other thing was, again, he wasn't the starter immediately. You already had a shortstop. You already had guys in spots. He was just kind of there. So you can't do the same thing with Jackson Merrill, and you can't throw him in the outfield either. I don't think that's going to help the Padres. Long-term thinking here. Jackson Merrill as a Padres and middle infielder. So we went through all of the kind of the problems of putting it together. I think you got to be able to acquire guys via trade. So you either do it via a trade where you go get a big time name and trade prospects, or you trade away maybe some of the assets you have at the major league level. Ha-Seong Kim. I think if you want to be successful, I think you have to trade Ha-Seong Kim if you want to be successful in 2024. That is a painful thing for a lot of people to swallow just because of the fan favorite he is, just because of, what he has done for the team, what he has done for the Padres. We've seen him improve. He's had the big bright spots, but the reality of the situation is you can't afford him at the end of the year. He is an asset that you no longer can afford. He is the key to try to make 2024 a successful year. If you want to keep Ha-Seong Kim, fine. If you want to come in fourth place, and it's not because of Ha-Seong Kim. You have a lot of middle infielders that can get the job done. If you move Ha-Seong Kim to try to get more pitching, to maybe get an outfielder, maybe even some more, young guys, you can move Cronenworth over to second base. Maybe that opens up a spot at first base. You can go out and get a free agent first baseman, for relatively cheap. Maybe you go sign a Brandon Belt. He's going to get about $10 to $1 million. Ha-Seong Kim's already getting 8. So it really only cost you 2 additional million. Then you go sign some outfielders, and we're ready to roll. But this is going to be interesting the way AJ Preller. This is the most difficult job that AJ Preller has this season, and the pressure's on. And I think February is going to be a lot of moves for AJ Preller. Next year, 2025. You can implement Merrill. You can implement some of these young guys, assume the ones that you don't trade away, because I do think you got a lot of prospect capital where you can move some of those players. We're going to